So you know what I can do here is something pretty cool. I'm gonna let me just close this session. I'm gonna save that and minimize that. Now I can share my screen with you guys. You ready? Okay. And what we're gonna do? We're gonna make a new logic session. I feel like rather than take apart a logic session that I've already made, which I've done a bit of on YouTube. If you're interested, you can watch that. I sort of figured I'd just make a new one because why not? It's 3:35. And so yeah, I guess I can explain how I think about these things. What I've kind of manifested here, I suppose, in my space is a rig where as soon as I can have an idea, it can be created. And I suppose that takes practice a little bit, and it also takes sort of courage and trust and stuff. But I'm thinking right now about a song. The first song that comes to mind is "Hey Jude" by the Beatles, which I like. Which I haven't planned this really. In fact, I haven't planned this in any way. I just thought of that now. But why don't we do like a tiny bit of "Hey Jude"? Just because I think you know that song. I hope you know that song. If you don't know that song, what on earth are you doing? You should be listening to it or learning it or something. And maybe we just like put the first few bars of that together and see how it feels. Are you down? Is that cool? Then we can talk about layers and like how it all works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, let me see, if I switch to this camera here, can you see the keys camera now and also the logic section? Well, this is just amazing. Okay, so let's see. This is what key should we do this in? Maybe B flat. B flat's nice. So, "Hey Jude" is in 4 beats in a bar, which means that for every time the measure resolves, there's been 4 beats. There you go. So actually, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to make this about 70 BPM, like this. That's about right. Now let's think in layers for a second. So, "Hey Jude" is a fairly simple song harmonically. It doesn't go too far, but it's nice, I think, as a creative person to think about the edges and think about the decoration. And I, for one, often think about the decoration before I think about the cake, which is sometimes to my benefit, sometimes to my dismay or to my detriment. But if we sing the melody for 1 second, if you can sing at home if you want to on mute, and I'm gonna sing the melody here. In fact, I'm gonna get my headphones on so you can't hear the click in your ears in the speakers. So let's see. If it won't be flat. Okay, so "Hey Jude, don't make it bad. Take a sad song and make it better." Oh yeah. Okay. So this is my vocal track. "Hey Jude." Not bad. So one thing I like to do is I like to go fast and I like to think about context. So let's see. I'm going to actually move my microphone a tiny bit closer to me like this. If you can still see my face. Let's decorate this. Let's start with the bass. "Hey Jude, don't make it bad. Take a sad song and make it better." Not bad. "Hey Jude." Okay, clear up a little bit. "Don't make it bad." Okay, now I like to do some pyramids sometimes. Like pyramids are what I call like kind of like ladders of notes. So for example, "Hey Jude." That's one note, and then we could do. Okay, we're kind of building a little universe here, and then let's add another pyramid. Okay. And this one's a bit out of tune. Let's do it again. Okay. Cool. A lot of people think of composition as improvising in real time, in stop time, that is. So you're improvising a thing that you're hearing in your head, but you're doing it in stop time. So what I've done is I've created a little pyramid. I'm going to pan them here, which means that they go to different speakers. There's the left speaker and there's the right speaker, and then maybe we should add some drums. And I can explain like I guess how I'm feeling about these things as I go, which is all I can really say as an artist. It's like How do things feel? Well, that feels okay. That feels nice. It's a bit like a waterfall. So I'm being decorative. So here's the lead vocal. Let's call it lead. And this is the bass. Let's call it bass. Let's put the bass at the bottom. Now, let's have a listen to that. Hey Jude, don't make it bad. Okay, let's just do another quick pyramid here. Make it bad. Make it bad. Bad. Okay. This note here is sharp. I'm going to redo that one, I think. Nice. Okay, let's get to the end of this phrase and then we can start talking about it. Okay, here we go. My bad. It's here. Okay, that'll do. Make it better. Make it better. It's nice. Better. 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 Okay. Better. Let's listen to our little piece of work. This is very rushed, obviously. Hey Jude, don't make it bad. Take a sad song and make it better. Okay, just skipping a bit. So, I guess the way I think about this kind of process is that it moves. I guess it moves as quick as I can think. I don't dwell on one idea longer than I need to. I'm kind of visualizing this as playing the piano, I suppose, in the sense that I'm stacking these notes up, like this. You know, you're spreading these chords out over arpeggios, and I guess having listened to music for a few years prior to this event, I've kind of by osmosis, I suppose, realised that pyramids feel good and that it also maintains a sense of time. So, but at this point, I don't need a drummer per se, because you can feel the time still. And let's see, sad. What's sad? Well, the opposite of sad is maybe magic. So let's add some magic. And as I'm adding magic, I'll explain what I mean. When I was 12 years old, I participated in a performance of an opera, and the opera. So I'm just navigating this. The opera was called The Turn of the Screw, and it was composed by a man named Benjamin Britten. And this opera was a horror story, and there were 6 members of the cast, and I was one of them. We'll get back to logic in 1 second. I was one of them, and I sat and learnt this music, and then I got on stage to perform it, and I did this 3 different times. And the second time I did this, the director was a rather visionary man, and what he made us do was he made us sit down and have the scores in front of us and sing our parts, but without doing any choreography, without moving around whatsoever. We sat still. And for those of you who have ever been on a stage and done a kind of a musical theatre thing, it's very, very uncommon that you're not told to move around, and you're not told to move to the left as you're singing this, or to reach out your hands, or to look this way. We sat on chairs and were static. But what we did is we annotated the music in the verbs that the director felt were inherent to the music, and then we inverted the verbs. And it was a fascinating exercise. So, for example, if I had a line in the opera which I sang as a 12-year-old that was intended to be really scary, which is, for example, quite often, because it was a very scary story, then we would write on the music. This may feel like a diversion, but I'll bring it back. We'd write on the music, this line is intended to terrify. This line is intended to thrill, to make someone feel uncomfortable. And then we'd take that verb and we would flip it, and we'd write the opposite verb, which in this case would be to charm, or maybe even to calm, or even to seduce or something. And then we would sing that verb into the line. And it was a crazy idea. And as a 12-year-old, my mind was utterly blown, because I was thinking, how can it be possible that this won't just fall to pieces and be completely random on stage? And I was wrong, in the sense that when we sat and started to sing this stuff, and eventually when we got on stage and sang it in the performances, by inverting the choice, the creative choice about how to deliver something, you get this unbelievable kind of heightened vibration of the initial intention. And I find this in real life too, as well, all the time. But it's a really amazing feeling to be acting in exactly the opposite way that you intend to act, but that inverted choice being the thing that brings out the initial intention. So to bring that back to the thing, when I'm creating music, one of the things I like to do is I like to think, what wouldn't I do here? And then I like to do that thing. And then I like to think about how it makes me feel. And sometimes it makes me feel awful. But often it makes me feel either intrigued or positive. And so it's just something I've gotten into the habit of doing. This applies to any kind of creative endeavor, whether it's writing a script, or whether it's recording a song, standing on stage, making a public speech, whether it's even about planning a lesson. Anything really. You can think, well, what would be the most insensible thing to do here? It can be really liberating to let yourself go from the kind of constraints of your own judgment and expectation, and to say, okay, well then let's do the opposite thing that I would expect to do, and maybe we'll find our way back to the initial thing, which is kind of a crazy feeling. Back to logic for 1 second then. Let's add some magic on the sad line, and then maybe when we sing "Make It Better," we're going to make it worse, just to see how that feels. I found some chimes in my sample pack. Take a sad song. Well, isn't that just lovely? And then what's the opposite of "Make It Better"? Sort of make it worse. Yeah, make it worse. How can we do that musically? Well, we can find some strange sounds for that. And as I'm doing all of this, I suppose I'm explaining the process of what it means to make these kinds of decisions, however strange and bizarre they may end up being. Okay, let's make an unhappy sound. Let's just make an unhappy sound. That's quite unhappy. Let's do an even more unhappy one. Okay. Okay. Now let's see what we just recorded. Okay, now let's put that down 18 semitones, see how it sounds. Sounds like a groovy lion. Okay. That sounds fine. And maybe we should record like a gong. And in fact, what we're going to do when we record the gong is we're going to get the gong from over here, and then we're going to hit it with a beater, and then we're going to slow it down. Ready? I'll make it better. Can sound better than that. 1 second. I'll make it better. And now, I'll make it better. This doesn't sound better at all. How interesting. Let's take this gong sound and we're gonna actually slow it down a lot. We're gonna slow it down a lot. And this is how I get a gong sound, because I don't have a big gong. It doesn't fit. But that's what the gong sounds like slowed down. Isn't that crazy? I find that really crazy. So. Nice. It's really cute. Okay. Now I'm going to quickly finish my composition, then we'll continue answering some questions. I'll sprinkle some keyboards over this, and we'll see what we got. Hey Jude, don't make it bad. Take a sad song and make it bad. Okay. Okay, that's fine. I'll leave that in for now. Don't make it bad. Take a sad song and make it bad. Okay. Well, I mean that was a nice exercise. Let me go back to my face for 1 second. So, what I tend to do with this kind of thing and I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Well, essentially this kind of thing is let all of the ideas on the surface come out, because that's where you start with this kind of stuff. You think, well, what's in my peripheral? What can I let out? And it's very, very crucial not to judge these ideas, and however stupid or silly they may sound. The end of that piece, for example, was rather inconclusive and strange. But that's more interesting than like anodyne and ordinary. So a lot of the time when I'm making this kind of stuff, I think it's a very freeing thing to think, well, let's have some fun with it. Let's see where it takes us. And I think a lot in layers, as you can see. And if we were to have about 5 hours more time, then you'd probably see me add about 500 more tracks. In the sense that there's drums and there's bass and there's guitars and there's mandolins and ukuleles and more vocals, there's percussion things, there's even this guy here, the echidna, who makes no sound at all. Like all these things, are there to be thought about and added. And I think what an artist tends to do is an artist amasses a palette, a palette of materials. And the more I've ever heard, and the more courage I have and belief I have in myself, the more I'm able to use. And so every time I sit and create something, I'm drawing on this palette, and in order for this palette to maintain fresh, which I think is the kind of endless struggle of lots of musicians is, how do I not get stuck in my idea? How do I not get into my own corner? How do I not do the thing I always do here? Try that thing of inverting the choice. It will bring some strange results, but it will also fascinate you, I think, if you're willing. And obviously, make it better is a primary color example of this. But if you're explaining an emotion like regret, for example. Regret is a fascinatingly deep compound of emotions, and regret, for example, could be antithesized by something like perhaps like a kind of reassuring reminisce or something. And when it gets to that degree of emotional kind of listening, and if you're listening to music with that kind of compass, and you're looking out for these sensations, and really it's the same as looking at the world, you begin to learn how you feel about the thing, which teaches you a hell of a lot about other people, seeing as one's behavior is always how one feels about others. And then when one turns on the creative tap, it becomes increasingly obvious that there are no wrong ideas, and there are no wrong notes, and there are no wrong grooves or rhythms. There are just things that feel really good, and there are things that feel all right, and there are things that feel not particularly strong. But it's this it's not math. It's music. It's a language, and it's ever changing and ever spoken. And so I suppose that when I sit down to create, I'm playing the instrument of, rather than playing the instrument of the piano or the voice or the drums, I'm playing the instrument of all the music I've ever heard from everybody who's ever taught me music, which is basically everyone I've ever heard. And whatever comes out, and it's important to let that come out, and then the decisions kind of become leveled up and of increasing interest to me anyway. I hope that kind of answers the question.